Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. It is a joy to be with you today. Everybody, like and share the show on Twitter, also known as X, the Santita J, at Santita J, at Santita J, or at the Santita J Show. Go to at Santita J. That's much easier. And we're streaming live there right now. And please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. But what I really need you to do is go to YouTube. Facebook reached out to me because of the traction that I have, and they want you to go to YouTube. So go to my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. You can see all the old shows there. They're cataloged there, but you get a chance to see these handsome gentlemen who are with me today. You don't get a chance to see the beautiful Linda and the fabulous voiced Dwight McKee, who everybody falls in love with, the Barry White of the radio. But that's, I'm telling you, just go on to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, like and subscribe. Andre, get everybody to share the show. Everybody who's listening, please thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up. That helps our algorithms. Like and share the show. Like and subscribe. Please go to the Santita Jackson and Friends page. The Santita Jackson page is not a page where I can accept any friends. In fact, people keep reaching out to me there, and Facebook keeps kicking you off because I've reached the limit. And so that's not me pushing friends off, that's Facebook. So in order for me to grow the community and in order for us to be together, please go to Santita Jackson and Friends. Hey, Velma, hello, peace and respect to you. Sending you so much love and many blessings. And to my god brother, Andre Parker. Everybody sending you so much love today. We have a couple of really interesting stories to discuss in this election 2024 season. We've been focusing on the Republicans, as well we ought, because now that has been settled, and maybe not. I don't know if they're going to keep J.D. Vance. He's proving to be a bit of a liability, but we'll see. But now we have got, by the end of the week, or certainly within the next week or so, we will have virtually, the Democratic National Committee will have voted on Kamala Harris, the vice president, and she will be declared the nominee. All of that will be settled before they get to Chicago. That'll be interesting. The person is important because I really am pulling for her. But the process is something I think we need to be concerned about. But that's something we should talk about going forward. Because we're seeing a rush to put someone in that we like. But what if it's someone we don't want? Think about that. That's why democracy is really important. So let's think about that. But, the rules are what they are. So they're following the rules, and the Democrats have actually bent the rules. Remember, they changed them last week so no one else could oppose. I put it all out there. Come on, everybody. Because that's what's happening, right, Pastor Hatch?
That's right.
That's what Attorney Linda Bernard, that's what's happening. Dwight McKee, that's what's happening.
Hey, Marshall.
That's what's happening,
Hey, B.
everybody. Okay, now this is not a conversation, it's the radio, so stay right there. Okay. Hush. Thank you. Very, very, very good. But but okay. It's okay, everybody. And in the next hour, we're going to talk about something very interesting that's happening. Phyllis Bennis from the Institute for Policy Studies, the head of their new internationalism project, is going to join us and talk about the IDF. Yes, Israeli Defense Force. There is a group of which they are part, and retired American servicemen, mercenaries. There is legislation before the LA City Council for them to, there is a group for them to guard Jewish areas in Los Angeles. But what will it mean to have the Israeli Defense Force, who we already trained with, who Al Jazeera has already said that, clearly we see that they have problems, racial problems, right? Well, what will it mean for them to be patrolling Jewish neighborhoods in Los Angeles? Does that mean I can't come in? What's that supposed to look like? Who does this? What's happening, America? Let's talk about this. But first, what's happening, America? Let's talk about 36-year-old Sonia Massey, a mother, a woman who called the police because we call them when we have trouble, right? Even with all of the challenges that we have with police, we still trust them enough to trust them with trouble. And so we call them when there's an argument, when we want peace, when we want justice. Oh, okay. She was having an issue. She called the police, but she ended up dead. And we saw the video, and the video is what's so stunning. They asked her to move a pot of water that was beginning to boil off of the stove, and then they shot her 3 times. And the autopsy shows that it was the shot through her eye that killed her. How does that happen while she's wearing pajamas? Now, black men, when you all go out into the streets, you get killed. Now, black women, when we stay at home, we get killed. Help me. Breonna Taylor was at home. Better, you got to get stripped naked before the police. And that's a death in and of itself. There's a lot going on. So we want to talk today about the Sonia Massey case because Sean Grayson, the police officer who killed her, was put out of the Army because of mental health issues. Not just that, misconduct.
Alcoholism.
No, just hold on. He was not a good soldier. I'm going to have you go into it, Attorney Linda Bernard. I just want us to be singing from the same sheet of music. He cycled through 6 police departments in 4 years. How many of us could stay in the same profession and go from district to district and just continue to get a job? Somebody needs to help me with this, and I thought this wonderful panel might be able to help us with it today. Pastor Marshall Hatch, who will be hosting, along with Reverend Al Sharpton and Attorney Benjamin Crump, at his iconic church here in Chicago, New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. I believe it's on Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yes. Tuesday,
and the address?
4301 West Washington Boulevard, Chicago, Illinois.
And they are supporting Sonia Massey with her memory. And we don't want this to happen again. Indeed, they showed the footage to her 19-year-old son. I don't know how they figured out how to do that, but here we are. Tio Hardiman, who's done so much magnificent work here in Chicago, and you need him everywhere. Indeed. The violence interrupters. People talk about all of the violence in Chicago, and some people, a few, have stepped forward to say, you know what, there are reasons for this, not excuses, but reasons. And so what we want to do is disrupt the violence. And we've got Dwight McKee, who's the head of the Ma'afa Redemption Project at your church, New Mount Pilgrim, but he's also senior advisor to Cornel West in his presidential bid. But let's start with Attorney Linda Bernard, one of the nation's foremost lawyers. Indeed, she's the first African-American to get a master's in law from UPenn Law School, an Ivy League law school. And she is also a commissioner with the Detroit Police Department and a civil rights lawyer. So what a combination we have here. So, Attorney Linda Bernard, what do you make of this case? Talk to us. Who is Sean Grayson? What happened with Sonia Massey, and how is it that he was able to go from department to department to department?
Well, there's no international, as a police commissioner, as you know, police have a great deal of training that they're required to get, and there's a thorough background check done not by the local department, like, for example, not by the Chicago Police Department or the Detroit Police Department. It's done by the state. There's a separate state certification in every state for a police officer. Once you've completed that training, once you're certified, in Michigan, it's called MCOs. Once you're certified, then you can actually work in any municipal or state police department, although each of them, of course, have their own criteria. But you can be fired from one and go immediately to a sister community and be hired in that police department because you've, quote, already been certified. You've taken the MCOs exam, like a bar exam. I could work in Detroit or Highland Park or Mackinac, wherever it is. But you can go anywhere once you're certified and take that certification, quite frankly, also to other states, and you're given like a leg up. So, and unfortunately, there in the George Floyd crime bill, there was a provision that would have made it put you in a national database if, in fact, you were a bad officer, like this officer. So if I went to South Dakota, somewhere, wherever I wanted to go, and I applied, it would come up instantly as that I would be red flagged. Well, as you know, the George Floyd bill has not passed Congress, and so there is no national database of, quote, bad officers. So that's how he's able to do it. That's how he was able to do it. But clearly, he had a number of issues. The the one for which he has been cited. Now, keep in mind that he's only had 2 arrests, and those were for DUI. So he drinks and drives, okay. But I'm sure there were many other things that have occurred, but when he's stopped by the police or when he's investigated, he shows his badge and they give him a pass. So that's just the ones that we know about. We
But
really
Linda, let me ask you this. He was discharged from the Army for serious misconduct. Uh,
right,
you mean
right.
because I would think that if you're
Unbelievable.
discharged from the Army for serious misconduct, that you
Right.
would not be allowed to be a police officer.
Well, that should stop you depending on the jurisdiction. I mean, different jurisdictions have different requirements, and they look into and or can overlook anything that they want to do. So he gets certified, and then he obviously is an officer, and he moves from jurisdiction to jurisdiction, and that frankly, Santita, is not unusual. This gentleman though was troubled. You're right. He was, serious misconduct. We don't know what that misconduct was in the military because it's not public information. But we do know about the 2 DUIs, and obviously, I don't know how he passed the psychic evaluation. Every department has a psych evaluation, and clearly he has anger issues, frustration issues, all kinds of issues that should have red flagged him and made him unacceptable to be a sworn officer in that community.
Well,
And the
yeah.
alcoholism.
Well, I mean, just, let me go around the panel because I'd like you to respond to this because these are people who are T.O. Hardeman. They're with us every day. And the presumption is that they're well. And clearly that's not true. I don't know how you can be discharged from the Army for serious misconduct. Number one, the media have not reported it, Pastor Hatch. Now, they leak things all the time. But they haven't leaked this. We don't know who this guy is, but we do know that they kicked him out the Army. T.O.
Well, it's the same prototype. You have a white officer, and 9.5 times out of 10, it's a white officer that killed somebody from the African American community. Sonia Massey was definitely not a threat in any type of way, right? And so you have an officer that pretty much made his mind up when he stepped into her house. If anything goes slightly wrong in his mind, not her mind, in his mind, he was going to shoot and kill her. All the sensitivity training people talk about, I don't know if it's going to work for officers that have the mindset that some African American people are not really human beings. Because look here, what happened to the stun gun? Sonia was not a threat at all, but in a situation like that, a hot pot of boiling water, she wasn't even attempting to throw it on him, and then she raised her hands up. So his mindset was kill, because he stepped into the house of an African American person. Then also there needs to be some new laws, policies where when you're going to visit African American people, like I said, I love all people. I'm not against any nationality, but we need more Black officers to go into Black households out here. And like the attorney was talking about, there needs to be a national register of police that have pretty much have a whole lot of issues in their background. Because every year or every other month, we have a white officer that has shot and killed an African American person wrongfully. And then you have so many videos out there, Santita, of Caucasian people crossing the line with white officers, and they do not use lethal force or excessive force with some of their white counterparts. And I see this all the time. It plays out. I saw a video of a white guy. He grabbed the police officer's baton and began hitting the police officer with it. They tackled him to the ground and chased him down the street, but they did not use lethal force. And we have to be clear. Sonia Massey was not a threat whatsoever. Zero. Some people are saying she may have had some issues here or there. Look at the officer. He's the one that had the issues. If you take a look at his background, he had the anger issues, and he went in there and killed that lady in cold blood. That's why he's been charged with first-degree murder. So that's my take on it, Santita.
And we're living with this every day, T.O. Hardeman.
Yes.
Pastor Marshall Hatch?
Yeah, no, Teal's exactly right. This was premeditated when you look at the video. And if there was no video, he would have gotten away with it. The premeditation is obviously because he said it, I'm going to shoot you in your face. And then he proceeded to do that in a home. Obviously he hasn't you know, obvious issues should have no way have been hired by any other police force after his background, which is obvious to us. He's totally unqualified, mentally unbalanced, spiritually decrepit, no business with that kind of power, authority in the woman's home. And he premeditated and shot her. And for me, it sounded like a guy having target practice.
When you saw the video, what did you think?
That it was premeditated.
Why?
Because he obviously was either drunk, which means that they should have also took toxicology tests. Mm-hmm. You know, this reminds me, I had the misfortune of having to preach the sermons, eulogies for Quintonia LeGrier and Betty Jones in the same week. A double homicide by another police officer in Chicago who had the same kind of issues and was eventually given his gun back and then said, you know, I think I just want to be a qualified Robert Rialmo to be a police officer, but I think I'll be a fireman. I mean, these are people who are entitled to these jobs. And you can see that he goes into the house and disrespectfully, you know, disrespecting her space for whatever reason, you know, that she called them. These are the people that are the professionals, are supposed to be the professionals, that we're supposed to have a certain level of trust and have enormous power. And I think that this guy went in there really thinking that he was entitled, if he wanted to shoot and to kill anybody in there. And that's what he proceeded to do. And if it had not been on videotape, we wouldn't be talking about it. So now we got to wonder what happened countless times. You know, one of the things that's been clear to me, Pastor, in the African-American community, and I just remember when it became clear to me the times I had been called to parishioners' homes that the police had ransacked. I just didn't even know it was constitutional for people's home space, castle, to be violated by law enforcement like it is in our communities.
Wait a minute, hold on. And when they ransack, Pastor Hatch, please continue, they wreck things.
Wreck.
I mean, they just come in and
as a sport.
Are they
as a sport
to replace anything? I mean, can you sue?
As a sport. And if you see what's going on in that video, the question that she asked she began to sense these hostile spirits, which is what the quotation of the scripture is all about. You know, I rebuke you in the name of Jesus. She sensed aggression that was totally unnecessary. And she asked the other police officer, where you going? Because he was headed to another room. You don't have permission to walk around somebody's house because they called you because allegedly she thought she heard a prowler, or for whatever reason.
Wait a minute, and a prowler is outside.
Yeah. So why are you walking around my house?
Inside.
And she just simply asked, you know, where you going? And that started the whole thing because they felt they had carte blanche to walk anywhere they wanted to in her house, because that's the way these occupying forces do in our community. It's appalling. There was a statistic that we talked about at the Leaders Network, I think about a year or so ago, and T.O., you might have remembered this. It was the number of police home invasions.
Yeah.
And there were like 6,000 in Inglewood. Wrigleyville, 0.
Exactly.
Okay, now for people in the listening audience who are not from Chicago, Wrigleyville is an affluent white area, which is where our Cubs are located.
Yeah,
but Inglewood is a poor community. In fact, it is now famous around the world because you see the life expectancy in Inglewood is not quite 60. But on the north side, in an affluent neighborhood in Chicago that is white, they can live to be 90. I mean, it's unbelievable.
My church is in West Garfield Park, and we're 5 Green Line train stops, 5 stops from the Loop. 16-year disparity in life expectancy.
Okay.
16-year gap between West Garfield Park and the Loop. 5 train stops.
And then
And so
Santita,
Dwight
I,
McKee, what?
yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry, T.O.,
No, I just
please.
want to say something quickly. We have a guy running for president that's attempting to give immunity to police officers. You hear me? So imagine police receiving immunity and what happened to Sonia Massey, right? I just want to put that out there in the universe,
No,
Santita.
but police already have immunity. Police are I mean, anyway, unless they commit a crime, they already have it.
Okay.
In every otherwise they wouldn't be a police officer. Your mayor has immunity. Most public officials have immunity for their acts that are done within
official
the
act.
scope of their area of responsibility, but they already have immunity. But in this particular case, and the city will pay for this. He
Yeah.
personally won't, as we know, he can be incarcerated for committing a crime. But you're right; he has no right to go through her house without a search warrant. That's absolutely true. They do have a right in order to say who else was present in this home. So a brother or a husband can't come out with a gun and shoot him or something like that. They have a right to ask questions like that and obviously observe to see if there's a man coming out or something like that. And on your point about not shooting her, T.O., they could have used both the taser, or they could have used what we call a bolo, which is a
Right.
thing like a serpent that wraps around your body that freezes you in place. So you
But
can't.
Wow.
but she posed no
What you're
threat.
supposed to use with a mentally ill person. That's what
But
you're
There you
supposed
go.
to
but she
use.
There you go.
posed
And not lethal
no
force.
threat whatsoever.
Right.
Yeah.
So
And
not even any of those other actions were warranted.
There you go.
It was premeditated. And he said, "I'm going to shoot you in your face," and then he
Mm.
shot her in her face. That's
three times.
premeditation on the face.
Well, I'm
of
not so sure because I don't think he's been charged with first-degree murder. And that's what premeditation is required for first-degree murder.
Okay.
It
I
sounds
thought
to
it
me like
was first degree.
Yeah, I thought it was first degree
It,
murder.
you know
That's
what?
what I'm
It
saying.
look. You know what? When you
It
saw the
is first
video,
degree.
it looked
That
like
okay.
was the
it looked like
charge.
first degree.
It
It
is
was the
first
That was the
degree.
charge
charge. He was charged with first degree murder.
because he
And then
said it and he proceeded to do it.
Yes, he did. That's true.
Okay,
And if
Dwight
he,
McKee.
attorney, all due respect, but if he
Okay.
has immunity and he's been, let's say he's convicted of, let's say, manslaughter, whatever the case may be, that means he does not really have immunity. Am I correct?
No,
No,
he doesn't have immunity for his criminal acts.
For a criminal act,
Yeah.
right,
Right.
which would be first
Okay.
degree murder.
You know,
I
he
mean,
can be
but
tried and
again,
sentenced for that.
he
Yes.
uses the language of target practice.
Okay.
No, don't get the medical kit. That was a headshot.
Well,
You
he
know,
knew she did. Yeah.
it was premeditation. It was normal to him.
I agree.
And had there been no videotape,
Yeah.
then the police report would have said she approached me to throw boiling hot water on me, and
Right.
therefore I shot her.
Mhm.
You know, when I did the Betty Jones and Quintonilla Greer services and served those families, when he was allegedly swinging a bat, it was really clear he was not swinging a bat at all. But there was no videotape, and so
No,
the
nobody can. Nobody can.
nobody can. And so this target practice on black people, the occupying nature of these police forces, the disregard for people's living spaces, the sanctity of their homes, is something that people experience day in and day out in these communities. And so when we talk about reform policing in these communities, and really to restore some sense of law and order, because when the police are outlaws, that's a big part of all of the violence and the crime that we have in our communities.
Well, we have
Because
to talk
people,
about it.
yeah,
Well, because women are particularly vulnerable when we're stopped in our cars. We're particularly vulnerable. I mean, because look, Rosa Parks became famous in Alabama because she would pursue the rapes of black women by white men that were never prosecuted, oftentimes by law enforcement. So you got a whole lot of half white black children walking around out here because there were prohibitions, not just legal prohibitions against abortion, but black people have never had a comfortable relationship with abortion historically. So, you have the child, you don't like how it got here, but you love the child, all of that. She became famous for that because they knew that reliably this woman had enough courage to go after the police 70 years ago. So, Dwight McKee, what do you make of this? Because I'm seeing when I come home as a woman, as a black woman, I'm not safe. Not.
well, we have a society that rewards the deranged. That's part of the problem.
Mm.
Is that you go to Vietnam or go to Afghanistan, you're trained to kill. You see your best friend's leg shot off. You get your hand shot off. You see children destroyed by bombs, and you come back half crazy,
And we
really.
make you a police officer.
And the first thing we reward you do is make a police officer. And so they come in deranged. We
Mm.
reward the deranged.
Mm.
And so and they have pretty much uh first serve on these jobs. That's what they look for. Are these veterans who either need to be in treatment or already past being able to be salvaged by treatment. And so, that's 90% of the problem is you got a guy who has come out of the army, who's been trained to kill, who has no attachment to the community that he's set up to occupy, who sees them no different than he see Vietnamese or the Iraqis. And so his reflex is that I'm in a war zone and I need to shoot to kill.
But Dwight, I have to object to what you're saying. First of all, what you're talking about is a soldier that has post-traumatic stress disorder.
That's
Most,
correct.
yeah, most soldiers don't have that, but the reason that they go into government jobs, whether it be police or the post office, is because they get credit for that in terms of their pension. With municipal governments and with the post office, if you spent four years in the Air Force and you're 4 years going in, for example, the post office or whatever, but many of them don't see any action. Let's face it.
But most of them, no,
Soldiers
most of them
really,
are undiagnosed. Most of them, you cannot go to war and see what you
no,
see
but
and
a
not
lot of
have
people
post.
a lot of people aren't in war. They're at the desk, they're at the computer, they're here, they're there. I mean, and our military is a great military, and I don't, I take great pride in our veterans and what they do. Some see action, 90% do not, because we don't have wars anymore, quite frankly. And
Yeah,
Right.
but
We
there
we we,
there are other places in the social order
Right.
that you
we
can
were in
place them.
Afghanistan 20 years.
I understand that, but most soldiers weren't there, including
So
my brother who
Dwight,
was in the Air Force, who never
yeah,
got out of Dover, Delaware. I'm just
Yeah,
saying.
amen.
but there are other places in society that you can put them.
But
They can be
but
construction workers. They can
but
be bus drivers. You don't have to make them all policemen. You have to give them guns, given the fact that many of them are preconditioned. Even if they don't go to war, they are trained for war.
That's a broad
but
slander,
you know
quite
what though,
frankly, of the
Dwight,
No, but,
military.
but
they
isn't
appear
that,
to have a
but wait a minute, but isn't part of basic training
well.
that to prepare you to go to war, to prepare you to shoot, to put you in
But
the
no,
mindset to kill? Isn't that what you have?
To
I mean,
protect, it prepares
help
you
me
to
to
no,
understand.
protect
no. The
the country.
reality here is you have a police officer, once again, a white prototype, a police officer. They have a cutoff switch when it comes down to killing their own people in a similar situation.
Mhm.
They cross the line and kill black people all the time. So therefore, I understand post-traumatic stress disorder, but it may not apply in this particular case because it happens too many times here in America. Look at Laquan
And
McDonald. What was
and
Jason Van Dyke's
absolutely,
diagnosis? What was his diagnosis? Okay,
and it's a very unhealthy relationship that law enforcement has with our community.
exactly.
I mean,
I agree.
and that's just all over the country. And I think the White's vein is one of the veins because you do have people who have the leg up coming out of the military, and some of them have had the stresses of combat. But this dysfunctional relationship, for example, in Chicago, we have one of the bluest cities in the nation. There might not even exist, to some great degree, a significant Republican Party in the city, but the police force is red as you can get. I mean, how does that happen? How do you have a red law enforcement in a blue city? And it just shows the disconnect You know, with
Marshall,
this,
excuse me, Marshall, if
yeah,
you were a cop and you had a choice between riding with me as your partner, a girl who's just come through the academy, and I'm a rookie, or you only have to be a high school graduate to be a cop and 18 years of age. Would you rather have me as your partner, or would you rather have an ex-Marine? I mean, think about it. I mean, people should not be discriminated against at all, nor are they, because they're a veteran of our
It,
United States.
but I don't want
it
to.
depends on who's trying to arrest. It depends on who's trying to arrest me.
No,
If you're trying to
One,
arrest me,
say
I'd
no.
rather have
no,
Wait a
wait a
minute.
minute,
Wait a
Linda,
minute.
you.
Linda,
If
wait,
you are ex-marine,
hold on,
Dwight,
wait, everybody.
Dwight.
One person,
Police
wait, stop,
officers, that is
Linda,
okay, but
Linda,
that is a
hold on.
valid occupation. We
Okay, but
need police.
Linda,
We hire
Linda,
police.
Linda. Everybody, one person at a time, so we can hear one another. I hear you, and this inflames a lot of passions, but we can't hear each other. We gotta hear each other. So we can't hear and talk at the same time. Dwight, you were saying?
I was saying it depends on if who's trying to arrest me. If you are trying to, if they're trying to arrest me or trying to search me or having a conversation with me, I'd rather it be somebody who just got out of training than one of these militant Marines who are trying to make a point at my expense, who is inclined to say, get your face on the floor and put me in the chokehold to make a point. I would much rather have a new recruit, female, who seems to be a little more sensitive to what you're dealing with. So it depends on what side of the police of the race that you arrested you on. If you're the policeman, I'm sure you'd rather have somebody who just got out of the Marines. But if you're the arrestee, it creates a whole different situation for you.
3 police
And the,
officers were just killed in Michigan. It made national news. A state trooper and 2 others. I mean, within the last 30 days. Being a police officer is a dangerous profession. You never know if you're going to go home that night. So the bottom line is that people are trained, one, to protect you and I, and to protect themselves. And the systems are designed to do that. They're very, very. I mean, these situations that we're talking about are very rare. For the what is it, like 700,000
No,
police officers in the United States of America?
Linda, the reason I have to push back here is this. When I think of this young girl who was 17, she was walking with her 9-year-old cousin down the street in Minneapolis.
16.
She saw, I thought she was 17. That was the report. And she was holding her phone, and she sent her 9-year-old cousin into the store. She said, no, go into the store, go now, and stay there until I come and get you. Because her lived experience at 17, and a child, you're a child then, you're a minor. Her lived experience told her to pull out that phone and tape what was going on, because she knew that what was happening to George Floyd was not going to end well. And she knew that if she didn't make a record of it, no one would believe it. They would have lied on him. It happens all the time. I think that's what, because this is, and I'm not saying, I know a lot of great police officers, but we have always attacked is the rot on the force, because people tend to abuse power when they have it. That's the tendency. I mean, because we are from a city where you had Holman Square, which is modeled on CIA black sites, where black and brown men and boys were disappeared. They went into that place. We never saw them again. Then we had John Burge, a commander, who basically raped black boys for more than a generation. He and his officers tasing their genitalia and on and on. I mean, my goodness. There's a
And
reason when these things happen, the people, Pastor actually get out in the streets and they march.
yeah, and the head of the FOP, the Fraternal Order of Police, is one of the most rabid, right-wing voices of disunion and disgust in the city. And of course, the union allows retired police officers to participate in their elections, so it makes reform and negotiation with the union difficult, because you almost have like a 1950s police department, and it's in the year 2024. There has to be some kind of fundamental change in the way that we do policing. The fact that they can only, this doesn't disparage anybody, but the fact that they only need a high school degree in order to have a profession with
Correct.
that degree of power over the citizenry means that something is out of balance in
Well,
terms of what our expectations are. When I deal with a cop, honestly, I assume I'm dealing with a blue collar mentality.
Which means
Almost that it means somebody that is probably a little
not educated.
beneath my capacity to understand principles of de-escalation in an exchange. I assume they don't have that level of sophistication, and I'm normally right.
But
Uh, which
police have policies. Police misconduct is very serious. Your city, Chicago, Detroit, I'm on the board of police commissioners here. Our primary responsibility is to address police misconduct. Everything from demeanor, from someone walking up to your window and being disrespectful to you, or not introducing himself, and every one of those things are things that go against the police officer in terms of his reputation within the department, and they go in his record. Every single complaint by a citizen is registered against, if Linda Bernard, for example. If
and
I'm
then the
we are
union,
trained they're trained how to act and what.
but the union negotiates every 3 or 5 years. My record is cleansed.
No, not here. You're right, but the union can, if that becomes a part of the collective bargaining agreement,
Absolutely.
become that. And maybe those things should fall off. They fall off your driving record. You know, you had a speeding ticket 3 years ago, and now it's the 4th year, it falls off. It's still there, but it falls off in terms of you having points or anything like that. So, I mean, that's part of the structure.
As long as this force, as police force, is an occupying force in a community like mine, it's going to be a dysfunction.
It's getting worse. Even in Detroit, 50% of our officers are, as you said, but about 80% of them do not live in the city of Detroit. About 50% of them are white. And it is a real problem, but there is no residency anymore. So you're not getting officers from your community. They have a right to live as public workers anywhere they want, including if you look at your own mayor's staff. Most of those people may or may not live in Chicago. They certainly don't live in Detroit. 80% of them don't. So
no, they must live in the city in Chicago, and 52% of police personnel live in only 5 of the 50 wards. So they live in enclaves.
That's correct.
Yeah,
where they have good schools, where they feel they have good schools and they have more community control.
But you know what? Also, attorney and Santita, back in 2016, I purchased a brand new Jeep Cherokee, and I was riding around in the North Lawndale community on the west side of Chicago. Some police pulled me over and asked me, was it my car? And then they asked me, where was I going? I did not answer the questions because I'm a grown man.
Misconduct.
Right. That's what I'm talking about. I told the police, I said, why are you asking me, is this my car? So he didn't respond. He asked me where I was going. I'm not going to tell you where I'm going, right? Because I'm a grown man. I'm not going to play games with you. But the reality, that could have escalated. Trust and believe me, because you're not going to come to me like that. I'm a grown man. I'm not going to have nobody playing with my intellect like that, right? So the point I'm making, some police officers definitely need, it's beyond cultural sensitivity. It's beyond it. I don't know what the word is for it, but there needs to be, maybe the police can hang out in the community a while before they become a police officer and get to know African-American people, you know, something like that. And without a gun sometimes, because sometimes people perceive our community to be like a urban concrete jungle, looking from the outside looking in. I grew up in the Henry Horner projects on the west side of Chicago, and I used to love the projects. It's not like I look at, even though the community is kind of tough, but I never looked at it like a concrete jungle because I understand my people. Hopefully that makes sense to the people that are listening. It's all about understanding the people that you're working with. And that's what some police officers are missing the point at right there. You know, that's my input right now, okay?
No, but I mean, because the thing is, the point was, I remember Officer Friendly. I'm old enough to remember that. And they were the people in your neighborhood. Remember that from Sesame Street and the electric company and Mr. Rogers' neighborhood? These were people who were, first off, they were officers of the peace. Now they're law enforcement. So there's been a shift in consciousness there, right?
Okay.
True.
Okay. They were preserving peace. Now they enforce. Which
and
means,
I remember Two Gun Pete. You remember Officer Friendly. I remember Two Gun Pete.
Now who's Two Gun Pete?
Two Gun Pete is famous in my generation as they were like a red squad, and they targeted young black men, and they were feared all over the city. People my age, you can ask anybody my age who Two Gun Pete was.
Well,
They targeted black men, and so when you look at a statistic like Reverend Hatch just talked about, where in Wrigleyville there were no uh, crashing in the houses and putting the people up on the floor, where in Inglewood there was 6,000, 6,000. Then just the disparity of that alone tells you where the city's head is. And also when you talk about what the brother just talked about in terms of how constrained white people are when they arrest other white people.
mm-hmm.
I look at the little bad boys that show Cops is the name of it.
Mhm.
And I was amazed when these white policemen arrest other white people, how much latitude they give them
Exactly.
and how sane they are around them. So racism plays an absolute role in this, and the disdain of the people that you are arresting.
And let me establish
But
this.
Dwight,
Blue
most
collar
gun
people,
crimes
no,
they say they're done by black people. I haven't looked at the stats. I mean, I think part of it is that our community also obviously has a lot of gun violence, and a gun is the most treacherous weapon that you can have. And so when officers approach you, and you're young and you're black, they're thinking that maybe you have a gun, which is very unfortunate. And I don't know how to get around that. Even when black officers approach young black, I tell people all the time. We say in Detroit, there's only one place that is safe for 5 black men to be, and that's on a basketball court. Because if they're in a car together and the police approach them, there's automatically that mindset that at least one of them has a gun, and this is going to be a violent encounter. And that's unfortunately the way people think.
Sister Linda, you can't tell me that black people have more guns than white people.
I'm not
Guns
saying
with white people are a religion.
I would
And so
agree.
so the presumption that black men have guns and white people don't is almost absurd.
That's
I
how some
understand
police
that.
think, though, Brother Dwight. What Linda, the attorney, is saying, some white police officers believe that black African American guys may have a gun. Sonya, getting back to Sonya Massey, she had on some gloves, some oven gloves, okay? Totally disrespectful murder right there, straight murder. But the point is, it's the psychology. I understand where you're coming from where everybody's coming from. Actually, I understand what you're talking about. But we have a problem in the black community with some police. Like I said, going back to the prototype, the model, you have a model of some white police officers that feel they're above the law and they can kill black folks whenever they get ready to, and they'll deal with the consequences later. We have that. We have to accept that reality. And I can care less about post-traumatic stress disorder when it comes to this prototype, because it's more racism. It's embedded. You got people like Pastor Dr. Hatch was talking about. Some of the police, even in Chicago, they come from 5 different communities, but they do not come from the inner city areas where they need to understand the people. That's what it's a major disconnect right there, everybody. The disconnect is that we don't have a community relationship with some of the police. And when some police cross the line, their superiors do not do enough to address those situations. We've had Jason Van Dyke here in Chicago, Commander Burrs, so many multiple reports placed on them, but it was never dealt with appropriately. And there's a failure of leadership within some police jurisdictions. Some people are trying to do a little bit better now, because Dr. Hatch, myself, the wife, we stood up in Chicago against excessive force and police brutality. I was standing up against those issues before it was popular, okay? And we're still standing up today. We should not have a time when a Sonya Massey is murdered. With all the work that's been put in, all the publicity against police brutality and excessive force, how could this continue to happen? That's
I
Well,
the that's the
let me
major
go.
issue.
Let me bring
I
some of the
agree.
comments in. Robert Williams says that Trump deliberately said that immunity statement as a dog whistle, that to police they can shoot an innocent black woman on her knees begging for her life.
Right.
But remember when President Biden was Senator Biden, just a couple of weeks after we saw Rodney King beaten half to death, he went on the floor of the U.S. Senate presenting an officer's Bill of Rights. Don't forget that. This is a bipartisan betrayal that we're dealing with. Kenneth
Okay.
Rush said they need to publish the daily amount of arrests of all ethnic groups, which is something they deliberately hide. That's my editorial comment. Robert said Miss Massey was nowhere near that savage, murderous scum when he shot her in the face 3 times, and that
Mm.
those shots killed her. The ultimate shot through her eye is the one, according to the autopsy, that killed her. Kenneth said that the VA hospital should have caught this mandatory evaluation by this returning war veteran. I don't know if he saw war, but who do they let in the Army? I mean, because, there's just a lot going on here. We need to look at that. And, Robert says that he hopes that you, Linda, are not trying to make an excuse for this race soldier goon, as he put it. And so why don't you tease out what you're saying?
Well,
Okay.
first of all, I mean, our military is responsible for our defense. Just this past weekend, as you know, the Chinese and the Russian aircraft buzzed our Alaska essentially, and we put up NORAD fighter jets in response. The military is necessary. We don't have a country without a military. And when people serve in the military, they are veterans, and they do have something throughout America called veterans preference, meaning if you're a veteran, Santita, and I'm a veteran, and we both apply for a job with the city of Chicago, and we're equally sort of, equally qualified, you get the job, and as you should, because you served your country.
Well,
so I don't understand the issue with that. This is national law. It's been in existence forever.
Well, I think that the challenge you have for me with that is that the reason I kind of push back on that is because I think in a civilian society, I don't know if that should be so. I think that veterans need to be protected. I think they should have adequate pensions. Number one, I think enlistees need to be paid so that you do not need to have payday loan centers on the edges of these bases, because they're not paid any money. They're not paid any money. And if they don't top out as top level military officers, they can't come out and make a whole lot of money as the top officers, as the generals, and what have you do. But even General Dwight Eisenhower, who became the president, said, beware of the effects, spiritual, he put that, and material, of the impact of the military industrial complex. He said, because this is new to the American experience, because we're not militarist. It's a civilian run society. And when you put the military and people who served in the military ahead of everybody, you put them ahead of a teacher, you put them ahead of a nurse or a doctor. Everybody serves.
They serve. They put their life on the line for their country.
No. Yeah, the garbage.
The nurse or the doctor did not.
Let the garbage worker go on strike, and let's see how healthy we're going to be for how long.
That's not
No. I'm just saying we can debate that another time. When I look at that, I'm like, and my grandmother and grandfather buried in Arlington. So I'm not disconnected from the military.
My cousin is a 3-star general. I just went to retirement. He's 50 years old. I'll have him on your show.
I appreciate the military and respect them. Used to spend half my summers on the base, because that's where my grandmama worked and my grandfather was a veteran. I got it. I'm simply saying to you, when we put the military ahead of civilians, we're not going to have the America that we keep saying that we say that we want.
We've had it since the Second World War.
I think, and you know what?
Preference is the law.
And you know what? And I think it's wrong. I do.
Okay.
That's just me. Now, I mean, and I'm not anti-military, but the thing is,
when you worry about it.
No, when you get up in Alaska, that is near Russia, and that is near China. So remember, we bought Alaska from. Okay, so I'm just saying that. So that is. So when they're buzzing, when they're doing their military exercises, they are near Russia. Sarah Palin ain't
they
that
buzzed
dumb.
America to show us disrespect, to show us what they thought about what's happening here politically. Look, we didn't do it to them.
No, we are doing it to them because we're trying to provoke. We're trying to poke the bear with Russia.
Let me tell you something. China has 1.5 million soldiers. So if you think we can do anything like that, great. And wait a minute, in the most powerful navy in the world.
Linda, we
are losing ground.
Linda, we should not be poking the bear. The fact is, America is America is going to learn, Linda, that it cannot. And Dr. King said it before we killed him. That America cannot continue to run roughshod over the world. It is not our world that everybody else lives in. It's our world that we share with everybody.
We don't have to worry about it much because our enemies are bigger than we are now.
Well, no, and and we've been an enemy to a whole. We've been enemies to a whole. We have been.
And I'm an American. I'm a Black American,
and
so
I am
therefore that's
too.
the
But
only
you
thing
know
I
what?
know.
But you know what? No, I know more than that because I know the killing of Dr. King is suspect, and we did it. Our government is in it.
Well,
Our government,
maybe
no,
better as a Chinese government.
No.
Or Russian government.
I'm saying right here. I'm saying Dr. King walked into the office of the top cop in America, J. Edgar Hoover, and that man tried to blackmail him out of the movement. And when he was killed, the FBI office in Atlanta erupted in cheers. I don't want to hear it. No, I don't want to hear it.
Fine.
Now there's some things
Hoover is dead. That no longer exists.
No. And the building is still, the FBI headquarters still named after him. So we just stop it. That woman should not be dead today. Because this trigger happy cop. Everyone, I have literally got 2 minutes. So I'm gonna give everybody 30 seconds. And when I cut you off, I gotta go because I gotta go to the next hour because we gotta talk about the IDF, the Israeli Defense Force, former soldiers, maybe patrolling our streets in LA. Hello?
No.
Is that no. The LA City Council is considering that right now. Now, fortunately, some protesters pushed back against it, but that's where we are. So I got people waiting on. I need y'all we need to wrap this up. Yeah. Linda, you got 30 seconds. Quick. Give me your final thought.
The only nationhood that we have is as Americans. We are proud of our flag. We are proud of our country. People who are engaged as officers in officer misconduct should absolutely be punished, and the municipalities that hire them pay big money because of it, as they should.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I have no problem with any of that. But
that has to be it, baby. I got 30 seconds. I got a quick turnaround, y'all. Dwight, 30. Give it to me.
Yeah, there's 1.5 million Chinese in the military, and there's about 1 million in the Russian army, but neither of them have dropped bombs on citizens and killed 100,000 people twice.
Reverend Hatch.
On this Tuesday at 6:00, New Mount Pilgrim Church, 4301 West Washington Boulevard. We'll be supporting the Massey family. They will be in Chicago. And of course, we are fighting for justice for Sonia Massey.
Teal Hardeman.
Yeah.
Violence interrupters.
No, justice will be served for Sonia Massey. In another lifetime, Santita, I would have been a 5-star general in the Marines myself. I shared that with Dwight McKee on Saturday when we had a protest out there for Sonia Massey, but I would have been a different type of general. I'd have been all the way for what's right for the people across our nation, okay?
And Dr. King was assassinated through the open window of the fire department, according to Judge Joe Brown. Well, my father was there. Yeah. And I know the people who were there who were talking to him. I know everybody who was in that motel, that teeny weeny motel, Kenneth. They heard what they thought was a missile. So they dove for cover. And the police came in pointing the guns at all of them. That's why you see Andrew Young, Reverend Jesse Jackson, and others standing on the balcony pointing. No, the shot came from that way, but it sounded like a missile. And put this in your pipe and smoke it. Dr. King was killed a year to the day, to the minute that he announced his opposition to the Vietnam War. He was okay breaking up apartheid in America, but when he went out to the military-industrial complex like Kennedy did, he was taken out. That was not a simple elimination. And we need to be very clear on that. Malcolm starts talking about pulling Africans and people of color together all over the world. Then you got to take them out. You got to let's look at what we're dealing with here. So I got to go, everybody. We're going to be talking about the former IDF soldiers who might be patrolling our streets. Certainly that's on the table in LA. Do you want that to happen? Let me hop on over, everybody. Join me on the second hour of the Santita Jackson Show.